Hey everyone, Jim T. Graham with RCGroups, and today we're looking at the CR-10 from Creality. This was provided to us by Gearbest. This is a 3D printer, and one of the latest rounds or iterations of 3D printers. You know, I was kind of holding out for something that was easy to build, easy to run, and did a lot of great things, wasn't very limiting. And so Jason Cole said, you know what, man, you should check this out. Everyone is talking great things about the CR-10. So I contacted Gearbest and they said, Jim, we would love for you to do a review on the CR-10. So first we're going to look at what comes in the box. You're seeing everything as it's ready to go right here. So let's jump into that. So your box is going to arrive and you're going to run around the house showing your children that you now have a 3D printer. I did that, it's true. But inside of the box is everything you need to get going to build the 3D printer, which by the way is so simple, and we're going to go over that sort of step by step here. I'm going to show pictures of how I did it. And not only are you going to get the stuff that you need, you're going to get extra stuff. So you'll get the wrenches, zip ties. These clippers are going to go in my toolbox because they're pretty awesome. You're going to get a scraper for your projects, USB with the micro SD card in it with the PDF, and also this is what you're going to use to print things with. A spool of PLA, everything right there. And once again, extra bolts, screws, and a spring. I have no idea what it does, but it's all there for you. And I felt like I definitely had everything I needed to get going and keep going. So then you're going to find other components like this. And what you're going to want to do is pull those out, unwrap them, and start going through, and you're going to start checking things. So these wheels you want to tighten so that when you roll the wheel, it rolls that unit up and down the rail. So you don't want to go super tight, but you definitely don't want it so loose that rolling the wheel does nothing. You're going to start opening your other components, taking off the wrapping, using the snippers to cut off zip ties, such as this photo that is popping up. So everything's held in place for travel, and that's a key point here. This will be in a box, maybe shipping from China. You're going to find your components in there are kind of loose. So find out where your screws go. Once again, the PDF on that micro SD card is going to have all this information, and you're going to start screwing everything together. And basically what I'm doing is matching my tools with my screws and bolts and putting things together. It was so simple. You know, some of these DIY printers, you literally have to put everything together. Every piece on the 3D printer has to be built by you. This is not the case with this unit. You get it going, and then there are these pretty cool T-brackets, I will call them, right here. And these go in the slots. I'm going to flip this over and show you that you want to align the, I don't even know what these things are called, but align those so that they will fit the slot, and you're just going to put it in the slot, and then you're going to use your Allen wrench there to tighten it up. There's one for each side. One looks like this. The other actually has a mechanism on it. So it should be fairly easy to figure out which is which. If not, once again, reference your instructions. So now this will make the majority of building your CR-10 complete, except you want to then go through every screw and bolts and verify that it's, once again, snug and that everything is working. So the reason this is important is because this thing is pretty minute in detail. And so as it's moving back and forth on these rails, and then we also have belts on here that move the bed back and forth. You want all that stuff pretty snug so that you are exact as you're printing. So when they ship it, I do believe that they do ship things not as tight as they should be, so that while it's in transit, nothing gets broken. But it is up to you to go in there and take your super cool tools and make that right. Now, before you turn any switches, I want you to make sure your voltage is right. Otherwise, you might blow the whole dang thing up before you ever get to use it. This is the back of the power supply and the brain. They're all in one box, and this is pretty, at least for me. Just make sure you're plugging them in correctly and not forcing anything. And then I went back and realized, hey, there's still stuff I need to tighten up on here. So I went through everything twice, made sure everything was nice and firm. I've said this a lot, I know, but it is important. And then you have thumb screws. This mounts to the power supply, and this is actually a holder for a tube, which screws on right here. And in the background, you see your filament. They ship with a roll of filament, so you can get going as soon as you want. PLA. And then we need to start plugging things in. Now, all these plugs are labeled E and X and all the information you need. Be sure to reference your manual on your micro SD card to make sure you're plugging everything in right. I want to proudly announce I did everything correctly the first time and got it rolling off the first try. Kind of rare. I'm just showing you here where the plugs are. This is where your filament's going to go. You're going to squeeze that where the spring is. You're going to load it up and finagle it through that brass fitting until it goes into the white tube and feeds all the way down to the nozzle. This is the brain of the operation. This is going to give you your vitals, allow you to tune things like how hot your nozzle is, how warm your bed is, how high your fan is running. It's also where your SD card is going to live, and this is where you're going to pull your 3D files from. So let's jump off of these photos and get into some real video. I'm in the studio. I moved this from its location now. It lives in my office, actually. And here it is. It's set up. It's ret to row. And what I thought we would do is go through everything that you will go through on your way to your first print. So I've moved it to my shop. It's a little cleaner. I'm verifying that my voltage is right. And then I'm going to flip it on from the back. And now we have woken the beast. So we're going to zoom in here and take a look at some of the features of this menu. The CR-10 300. This is telling me my nozzle temp, my bed temp, and my fan temp. It's also showing I have a SD card loaded in the side slot. That loads, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. And so you depress that main button, and that allows you to go to all your control options. Right now I'm looking at my SD card, and I'm looking at all the different things I've loaded on there to print. It does like STL files, by the way, what I've been using. So to get going, go to Prepare, Auto Home. And that's going to send the nozzle head to the home starting place. You could use preheat PLA if you needed to get your PLA out and change colors. Then we're showing fan at 100%. My theory on the fan is that it puts out the hot melted PLA and the fan helps cool it at a certain degree, like you can have it 100% or 60%, and that provides rigidity based on how fast that fan's turning. And then here's your temp control. So I've heard people like to run this thing around 200 at the nozzle. And the bed, well, let's tweak that a little bit. And then the bed, a lot of designs I see run it at 50, but I run at 60. And so you need that bed to be warm. That allows the PLA to adhere to it. The fan speed, I've done some research on. I've gone on the internet and I've read where people like to run the fan at 60%. When you download a design, sometimes all these parameters are in the design. So when you click on it to print it, it will have a preloaded nozzle, bed, fan speed. Sometimes I go in and tune to what I think my bed likes the most. You will find, first of all, don't let me overcomplicate things. As you print, you will come to realizations and go, you know what? It's better at these numbers than that number. And so you will learn your machine. You'll learn what it wants. And if you want to know that ahead of time, you're going to want to get on the internet. So I'm looking at the PLA here. It came with that white PLA. I ordered the red PLA, and then I ordered black. My favorite colors, by the way. I use red for things that I need high visibility for. So if you actually are hitting the buy button on this, why don't you go ahead and buy yourself a couple of more rolls? You're going to need it. And you're going to want different colors, I guarantee. They make all kinds they make wood PLA. So there are options out there. That mounts on this arm. It stays on there pretty good. There are printable options that allow you can print and put things on that spool to make it stay on better. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump to loading your PLA. So you're going to depress this, as we saw in the photo. That holds those two crimpers together. The brass one is actually mechanical, so that auto spools it as needed. You're going to push it through. It's going to initially maybe be hard to get through that brass fitting, but once you do, you're just going to, oh, I pulled it out. So you want to cut that at a 90-degree angle. That will allow it to go through that brass fitting a little bit better. You're going to load it into the hole there. I'm sure I'm trying to shoot the camera and load it in. And then when you depress, it'll create a gap for it to go through. Second hole. And then once again, the brass fitting is going to give you a slight bit of trouble. Just keep working it. It'll finally get in there. After your initial feed, it will be easy for the rest of your attempts. And then you need to feed it all the way down this white tube to the nozzle, and you'll see it go through the tube, and then you'll feel it touch the nozzle, and it'll stop. And that's how you know you're ready to roll on that. And then we're going to take a look at what it looks like. So down here is the head unit, and this is what heats the nozzle. And that's how the magic works. There's the fan on the side. I actually printed myself a fan. I don't know if it's a shroud, but at the bottom there, it kind of redirects how the fan pushes air. They say it's a better design. I don't know. I'm just a king daddy of modification. And so I figured, what's cooler than having a unit that can modify itself? This would be like having a pickup truck that would make parts for the pickup truck. It would be pretty awesome. So now we're looking at the bed. This is a heated bed, and that's kind of standard now on newer machines. You want your PLA to adhere, and you just saw the masking tape. That didn't work for me. I just couldn't get a good print, and I thought it was me. And so then I saw also that people use hairspray on these beds, and I thought, well, I could run up the street and buy some hairspray, and that's exactly what I did. The lady seemed a little taken back. If you don't get good adhesion on your glass, you're going to get stringy, blobby messes. And I have big piles of this that I've saved. I guess I should throw it away. So I've got my hairspray, and I said, give me something, the craziest hairspray you have, and that was that. I spray it on the glass, and I usually do 2 coats. If it's pre-warmed, it will actually immediately dry. So this creates a sticky top layer for your PLA to stick to, and then when it cools, you can pop it right off. But the first thing we have to do is level the bed. So we're going to jump in here. I've hit prepare. I've hit auto home, and that is going to send your head to the far corner. And then I'm going to disable the steppers. And the reason you want to disable steppers is so you can move around the head and the bed. So there we go. Now, the way I do it and the way I believe you're supposed to do it is you want to level the bed on all 4 corners first. And so we're going to go here, and you're going to ask, what do I need to determine how high that nozzle needs to be off the bed? All you need is printer paper. A standard sheet of paper will do. Once you do this yourself, you're going to figure out exactly what it is you're looking for. But what we're going to do is we're going to slide the paper between the nozzle and the glass. By the way, preheat everything. So get your bed to the right temp, let's say 60. And you want everything expanded, and heat will affect that. You want to have your surface prep on there. So if you're using a hairspray, masking tape, a glue stick, whatever, have all that on there because you're going to want to have your distance right. So we're sliding the paper. If it slides loose, that's not good enough. You want friction under the paper. So when you start to feel it drag, you're about right. So I got a little too tight. I'm going to turn it back a little bit, and then I'm going to feel it, and I'm going to think, okay, that's about right. You'll know when you get it. So then we're going to go to the other corner, and we're going to do the exact same thing. It's going to get tricky in a minute, and I'll show you why. So now we're in this corner. Up, we're loose again. We're turning it different directions, trying to figure out which is up and which is down. Moving our paper, And I have to admit, sometimes I'm not sure which way to turn the knob, but I ultimately always find the right direction. So I'm getting a little friction there, and I'm just about perfect. And so this is kind of it. This is leveling the bed. I'll check other areas, and the thing I'm going to say is you probably are not going to be printing on the far corners of your bed. You might be. By the way, this printer is 300 by 300 by 400, which is pretty large for a printer. And I'll talk about this in my conclusion about the price for the size. I'll just go ahead and say it. It's pretty awesome. I mean, this is a pretty big 3D printer, and the price is pretty amazing. But we're leveling the bed right now. So you want to get all those corners about right. And what that does is it gets the whole bed at a good place. But you're going to be printing in the middle of this glass. So the middle might be the most important part. And almost always, it's not going to be exactly right. So what I'm finding right now is all I need is a tiny tweak right here to get the friction. And then a tiny tweak right here to get the friction. Now, what that's saying is the surface is not perfectly smooth, or I'm sorry, perfectly flat. And I don't know if that, I'm sure it exists somewhere, but mine is not perfectly flat. The good news is it doesn't have to be exactly perfectly flat. But now that's leveling your bed. The most important thing you can learn here today, other than about the machine, and that will create a success for you when you go to print. How will you know if your bed's not level? Your prints will look like this, globby and stringy. That's a great indicator that you probably need to make sure your surface has some hairspray on it or tape or something, and that your bed is level. So now we're going to print from the SD card. Sometimes it won't read that card, and you'll have to put the card back in or something like that. But I save all this from my computer. In my RCGroups review, you'll see links to the software I'm using to get things onto that card, how to edit these things, but that's in the review on rcgroups.com. The link is down below in the description. So I'm going to select something to print, then I'm going to depress the main knob, and now the machine is looking at that file, and it's saying, how hot's the nozzle need to be? How hot's the bed need to be? How about the fan? When it thinks about all that, then it's going to send all that information to the actual head and the bed. And then when it feels like it's ready and all the numbers are right, it will begin to print. And then you'll become very excited. So I'm going to suggest on that SD card, they have a file there for you to print. Print that first. My son came to me with multiple projects. None of them worked, and I was feeling like I was not able to do this. And then I thought, you're breaking the first rule of being a reviewer, and that's use what they gave you. So print what they have on the card and see if you can have a success. If you don't, I'm going to say it's the bed or your surface. And once you get a good print, you'll be like, I get it. So now it's printing, and it's laying down basically an outline of the print. And this is a good point in the game to pay attention to what's going on, because I am paying attention, and guess what's not going on? Okay, that looks good, but do you see that it's dragging the plastic around? These are not straight lines. This is just plastic coming out of the nozzle. The bed isn't level, or something isn't right. So as soon as you see this, it's time to stop the print and figure out the problem. Now, the beautiful part is when you get it all right and you just watch it do its thing. So I'm going to show you how to stop a print. Scroll to stop print. Click. Bingo. It'll stop immediately. And then usually what I do is return the head to home. That allows me to get to the glass, prepare, auto home. And then I'll get on the glass and move the PLA off and clean it back up. And the head's sitting over there in the corner. So you have access. Also, just turn the steppers off so I can pull that towards me. So I'm going to clean all this off. I'm going to reassess what's going on here. I wouldn't put this in the review, but it's going to happen. So I'm applying hairspray. and then I might hit it one more time. And I also know where the print is going to be because I just saw it, where it's going to live on the table. And with the heated glass, once again, that hairspray is going to dry fairly quickly. Everything seems good. Getting all the little parts off. Then I'm going to go back to the center, and I'm going to just check out my level. I leveled it. You saw it. But I'm going to verify. Now, one thing I have to say, I thought about this after I shot the video, is that I carried this by the supports from where it usually lives to the shop so I could shoot the video. And I might have tweaked something. And when I bring it back to the main shop, I'm going to check all my nuts and bolts and make sure everything's tight to make sure that this bed is sitting perfectly flat when it gets to the place it's going to live at. So here is a fast bed leveling. This is usually what you'll be doing. See how smooth that's? I don't know why. It could have been a heating thing. You know, maybe the glass wasn't fully heated when I initially did my leveling, and now it is fully heated. And so that could have affected it. Now, I will say also, after I've leveled it, I've run print after print after print after print with no issues. So it's not like you're going to do this 8,000 times. Once you get it, you got it. Like Bubba Spivey told me, you don't know what it is, but when you do, you will. All right, let's give it a shot. We're going to jump back in. We're going to print from the SD card. And I'm going to pick something different just because I'm a little overwhelmed by my options here. And this is a SD card holder. I'm going to show some stuff at the end of this video, but if you go to Thingiverse and look up your favorite airplane quad camera, you will find probably something that you can print. That's how this is RC relatable. Really should have said that in the beginning, I guess. There's all kinds of stuff you can make. I'm changing my bed temp to get it warmer, to make that PLA stick a little better. And the nozzle's at 200, as seen right there. I think that's good. I'm turning my fan speed up. Once again, I'm just kind of guessing with fan speeds at this stage in the game. You can see everything is spooling up and getting ready. And the machine says, I'm happy, I want to print. Now we're seeing what we expected to see the first time. The machine is laying down a great bead of PLA on that surface. It's creating an outline. And this usually means that your print is going to be successful. Now, some of us, Jason Cole and I, have cameras that point at our bed, and I actually had a few laying around the house that I used for security. I had an extra one, and I can watch my prints from my phone to verify everything's going right. So this is what a good print looks like. We're rocking. And I wanted to show some things off that I have printed. This is the thing that came on the SD card, the first thing I printed. It really made me happy, I have to say, that when I printed that I had a thing that could make a plastic toy sculpture. I don't know. This is a canopy for a strato surfer. I looked it up on Thingiverse. There it was. Has a hole for your camera. Has an outlet hole for your video transmitter. And then I thought, you know, I want an air outlet to get some air flowing, and I did that in Tinkercad. It's an online site that you can do things like this, and it actually worked. I couldn't believe I put a hole in the design that I found on Thingiverse, but I did. So this is the RC type of thing that you could create. Very nice. You could also make a platform. I think that's what's next for me, is instead of a full canopy like that, I'm going to do just the platform with the right slots and holes. And we're getting a good print. Actually, I'm showing what it's printing right now. This is a USB card holder. These are what I take to shows. USB, SD, and micro SD. These usually sit in a pile next to my computer, but now they sit in this awesome SD card holder that I have. And so now I'll have two more when this print is done. And really, it's limitless what you can make or design. And once you get into Tinkercad, you can build everything or anything that you want. Air outlets on your plane, braces for landing gear, mounts for cameras. So just about anything you can imagine, you can find or design. So let me jump into my conclusion here. First of all, I've waited on a 3D printer until I found one that was not a giant headache, and this is that. It's a great unit. As you can see, after you get your parameters laid down, understand how it works, you can have successful prints. The price is only around $400. They're always offering a coupon or something, and that will be in my review on RC Groups, link below. And so for the price, you're getting a really, really big 3D printer. 300 by 300 by 400 is big in the 3D printing world. You're getting a great brain right there, power supply. I have seen videos where people have pulled this apart and the wiring in there is really well done. It's not cheap. It's, you know, it's a nice piece of equipment that you're going to want to own. Super easy to build. I have to recommend this. I've seen other people that are much more knowledgeable than me in 3D say that this is the best printer at this point in time for the money, for the size, for the build, for the quality. So I'm singing its praises. Oh, I wanted to say, I make stuff. If you're an RC pilot, you probably are a maker too, in that I make guitars and amps and all kinds of stuff. I wanted to throw this in. I also made a little mount for my TX-03 that I could screw onto anything at any time. So it's handy stuff like this that comes in. And so when I'm saying I'm a maker, I like to make things. I also work, you know. RC Groups is 8 hours a day of sales and looking at people's posts, creating threads, going to events and all that stuff. But in the background, my printer sits over here and prints. It gives you some weird satisfaction to know that you're making something while you're working. I don't know. I can't really describe it. I was talking to Jason about it, who has like 4 3D printers, and he said that he gets the same feeling. It feels good to know that in the background you're creating a thing that you can use. So that's what this does for you. Gearbest has been great to work with. I simply said, this appears to be a great printer. I would love to do a review. They took care of me on it and said, make sure everyone knows about our coupons so they can save money. And they're in stock. And they sent me an email last night about it. So, you know, sometimes people say, hey, you only review the good stuff. It's true. I don't review the bad stuff. I review the good stuff. And this is a good thing, a great 3D printer. I highly suggest, if you're on the cusp, if you're like, I don't know, should I? I was that guy. And I would tell you if this was overly complicated or tricky or any of those things. It's not. It's great. So great feature set, great brain over there, very intuitive to use. And now you can make anything you want, man. My kids are coming in asking me to make them things from video games and for their video game holders and for medallions from their favorite game. And in between that, I'm creating parts for my airplanes and all that stuff. So super cool. I'm a big fan. Go down to the description below and click the link to learn more about this. Also, there'll be links back to Gearbest, back to the page on this unit, back to the coupons. And there you have it. There it is. I'm Jim T. Graham with RC Groups. I am now 3D printer. You can be too. I hope this has helped you. And now let's just watch this thing print.